Hello, Libsem 2025. How you guys doing? Yeah, you guys seem like a cool crowd. How are you, sir? Good. Yeah, and you're older than me. I already have hip problems, can you believe it? So please excuse the crutch and my slow pace. I recently, about 2 weeks ago, went for hip replacement surgery on my right side. I'm fine, I'm in recovery, everything's looking good. But I didn't want to miss out on this opportunity to talk to you guys about something extremely important here that is happening in South Africa. So my name is Emilo, and I'll be talking to you guys about land grabs in South Africa. And I'm sure a few of you have seen shacks popping up, especially over the years since 1994. In certain areas around Cape Town and South Africa, these illegal settlements, occupation settlements, they're called many things, informal settlements, have just been increasing. During lockdown in 2020, they exploded. And my question was, why? How? After 1994, and supposedly South Africa new democracy, in a place where there's supposed to be law and order, how is it possible for people to erect shacks so easily? How are these informal settlements happening at such a rapid pace? And that's why I set out to investigate the Tygerberg Raceway that is in Kraaifontein here in Cape Town. It is or was a raceway, community raceway, loved by all the locals from any walks of life. It was a huge support to the race industry. A lot of young racers started there. You're talking about car building. The whole industry was supported by this raceway. And unfortunately, in 2020, when lockdown happened, within a week, it was burnt to the ground, leveled. Every brick, every pipe, every infrastructure that existed there, destroyed. And then shacks were erected, gone. How? Why? Again, where was law enforcement? And this Tygerberg Raceway story is a very unique story. And I say that because during lockdown, the courts were not allowed to process evictions. There was a temporary legislation that said you're not allowed to evict people. But the city tried to get an interdict in order to prevent people from taking over the raceway. And guess who came to prevent that interdict? The South African Human Rights Commission. They single-handedly were the reason for the demise of that raceway, because the moment that interdict was stopped, it was open season. And before you knew it, the raceway was no more. If you go there now, you'll see thousands, not hundreds, thousands of shacks erected over that piece of land. It's gone. I was fortunate enough to interview the previous raceway owner, Chris Liebenberg. And his story is tragedy and heartbreaking, heart-wrenching. If you haven't seen it yet, please, it's on my YouTube channel, my documentary Stolen Ground, where I answer a lot of the questions about why this happened. In this documentary, it reveals just how broken the system is, and it is broken. You won't believe it. Before I continue though, I want to ask the audience here, just by a show of hands, how many of you have heard of the PI Act, Prevention of Illegal Occupation? There's a few of you here, yeah. Okay, around about half. Those of you that haven't heard of it, you're going to be shocked to know what this legislation says. I'll start from the beginning. The legislation was written, obviously, by the ANC during the Nelson Mandela period. And it was a legislation that they said was going to be good because we don't want the government to easily evict people. We don't want that anymore. We don't want what the apartheid did by displacing people. So this is going to prevent people from just being kicked off on the streets. That was their marketing for it. But over time, and by the way, this legislation came into effect in 1998, over time, nefarious people, when I say nefarious people, I'm talking about mafiosos, known as shack farmers, politicians, and other high-ranking people, elites, saw the loopholes in the PI Act and exploited them. What's even more upsetting to me, at least, is the very people that these politicians claim to be trying to help. You know, the people on the list. I'm sure we've all heard of the people on the list, the people that were kicked out of their land or home back during the apartheid era, and they're on a list to get new housing. Those very people are being affected by these land grabs. Because 9 out of 10 times when there's a land grab, in the same case with the Tygerberg Raceway, that land was earmarked for housing, public housing, or RDP housing. And then all of a sudden, land grab. And not a land grab by the people waiting on the list. No, no, no. Other people that have nothing to do with the list took over that land. And the government goes to the people that were on the list and say, sorry, there's nothing we can do really. The PI Act. Now how exactly does the PI Act prevent law enforcement from helping? Well, I'll give you 1 or 2 examples. Firstly, if I, Neil, I've been to your house before, it's a very beautiful house in Hout Bay. Let's say one day I found out that you're on holiday, and I managed to climb over that big fence that you have, and I set up a tent in your driveway, and you come home one day. Even if I'm not in the tent, I don't know, I'm into the shops, whatever. Maybe I'm swimming in your pool, whatever. But as long as that tent has evidence of someone living in it, a toothbrush, a suitcase, a makeshift bed, you're not allowed to tear it down, even though it's on your private property. If you do, I, the illegal person that's there, can sue you. And then, not only that, if I sue you, you have to buy another tent for me, or you have to find me alternative accommodation at your expense and compensate me for the damage. That is what the PI Act says. Now, anybody in this room would understand that that is a gross violation of private property. And it doesn't just apply to private property, it also applies to government property. Municipal land has also been taken, much more than private property, and farmland, of course. But municipal land is usually most of the time what is being taken. And the municipalities, as we know, are broke. So they can't take these people to court. They don't have the money. So what do? They say, well, we don't have the budget to take these people to court, so they'll just have to stay there. And this is where the contentious rates kick in, for those of us who live in Cape Town. We all know the DA is trying to up the rates. Some people will say it encourages the land grabs. Not exactly. I disagree with that narrative. I think the DA and the Western Cape is basically between a rock and a hard place. They are obligated constitutionally and by law to provide a safe living environment for people. That applies to illegal settlements. They have to do it. But of course, they need budget, so then we pay the price. Is it incentivizing? Indirectly, maybe, but I wouldn't say that it is the agenda of the DA, as some groups have said. The other problem with the PI Act is, which also shocked me when I learned this, you have to go through the court. You have no choice. That's why if you tear down my tent, I can sue you, and then you're forced to go through the court. Now we all know the South African courts, how amazing they are. They're super fast. They'll get your settlement, within 20 years, I think, maybe, if you're lucky. And that's why a lot of people end up giving up. When their land is taken, or a shack comes and erects in their property, and they go to the courts and they try and fight this through the courts, the lawyer fees are too expensive, the court fees are too expensive, and a lot of the times people just give up. Now, this is not something I went into detail with my documentary, but I did mention it. That part is very dangerous, because the Expropriation Act, which was recently signed into law, there are different, not motivations, different reasons for the government to be able to expropriate without compensation. One of them is abandonment of land. Now, this was recently amended with a little bit of a added detail, which is that if you abandon your land, but you can prove that you're still in the process of trying to get it back, in other words, you're in court and you're trying to get it back, the government will say, okay, we'll leave it alone, let us know what happens. But if you've given up, if there's no proof that you are trying to get that land back, the government can come in and say, we'll take it with no compensation. So you can see how the PI Act and the Expropriation Act can easily work together to erode property rights even more. And I believe this is a very, 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 very dangerous piece of legislation added together with the Expropriation Act that will erode property rights beyond belief. If we see more examples of this, which we are seeing, there's a case that Sakelicha recently exposed in Gauteng, where the municipality tried to take land without compensation. That is playing out right now in the courts. But heading back to land grabs, the land grab situation creates a lot of issues, not just with the Expropriation Act and everything that I've mentioned, but it erodes the quality of the city. In my investigation coming up, I do plan on releasing more documentaries about land grabs, and I'm looking at Hermanus and Gerbau. What is happening there is destroying those cities. And the level of corruption, because of the PI Act and because of politicians, is unbelievable. I don't want to say too much. I like to keep this stuff close to the chest, but I will reveal the truth behind those land grabs in due time. I hope you don't mind, but I will mention that I'm raising funds in order to create this documentary. You can go to stolenground.co.za to find out more information if you want to donate and help me bring these stories to life. But I guarantee you it's what happened at the Tyberg Raceway is but a micro example of what can happen when these land grabs are even bigger. Take Gerbau, for example. It is one of the biggest land grabs in the Western Cape. It is the biggest land grab in the Western Cape. And Hermanus was the most violent. And both of them were for political reasons. Now, before I go, just check, okay, that's a little bit of time. What else can I say about the PI Act that is, I feel, super important? You might be wondering, why can't something be done now? Lockdown's over. The raceway is still the land is still there, but it's occupied. Look, it's difficult. I interviewed J.P. Smith in my interview, and he mentioned, or in my documentary, he mentioned, how do you remove thousands of people to fix the land? You put them somewhere else, that's going to cost money. And then you have to build an alternative place for them to live, that's also costs money. So again, the DA is in a hard place here. All while Chris Liebenberg, the previous owner of this raceway, has lost everything. He's never been compensated for what was destroyed. He's never been offered a new place to have a raceway. Nothing. They've forgotten about it. And he's a man that still loves racing. I asked him, said, if I had the money, would you do it again? And he said, yes, in a heartbeat. So his passion for racing lives on. But I think that land grabs in South Africa are something that we should take seriously. I understand that there are people that need housing and that were displaced in the previous apartheid era. I understand that, and I do sympathize with that. But like I said before, you're robbing even those people. The people that are involved with land grabs are not just poor people. These are people that have been duped. These are people that don't understand that when they're being sold a plot of land that doesn't belong to them, they don't understand that this belongs to a raceway. They don't get that. They arrive, by the way, they bust in, and they arrive and a shack farmer basically tells them, here's a plot of land, 5,000 Rand, pay me 500 Rand every month, you can live here. That's it. The shack farmer is the landowner, but he's not the legitimate landowner. But yet they operate like they are. And I've been told that there's more than one shack farmer in any given area in a land grab. I've also been told that a lot of shack farmers have close ties with councillors and politicians. This is a very, very scary thought. It's how these shack farmers are allowed to operate without any pushback. When you are allowed to operate and you know the councillor or you know the ward member or you know a politician, you're not going to get arrested. And make no mistake, these shack farmers make millions. Millions. It's a very lucrative business. There was a shack farmer once that was interviewed who said he got 15,000 Rand per shack. I know someone in Grabouw who didn't believe that you could easily buy a piece of land. So this owner told one of his workers, here's 5,000 Rand, go buy a shack. Sure as Bob, he bought the shack. Ironically, now there's an hotel owner in Grabouw that now owns a shack on the property that was taken from him. The level of corruption is something I fear we may not be able to fix unless there is a dramatic change in leadership, a dramatic change in the law. The DA at the moment is trying to fix the PI Act. They're trying to basically amend it so that there's a definition for a home, which doesn't exist, by the way, in the PI Act. Even if I had just a tarp and a piece of stick, you're not allowed to take it down. That constitutes a home. That's how ridiculous it is. There's no definition for home. There's no definition for the amount of time that this illegal structure can be on your property before it's deemed illegal. The court says, no, if you don't want me on your property, you have to be there immediately before I put up the tent. If you get to me before I put up the tent, and you throw the tent out and you throw me out, you're all good. But the moment that structure is erected, you gotta go to the courts. These are just some of the problems with the PI Act that the DA is trying to fix. The referendum party is also waging a war against it. They want to completely scrap it. And I appreciate that some politicians are trying to fix the situation. I think it's a good thing, but my journey and my storytelling and my passion for this topic will continue because I think more and more people need to be aware of what is going on. I don't think people completely understand the depths, the level of depth that this very intricate syndicate, how they operate. And like I said, Grabouw and Hermanus are very interesting stories, similar, but very, very interesting and unique in their own way.